society, policymakers, regulators, we should be a lot more curious about the industry, not only because we want to identify what are the best ways to manage it, but also what are the opportunities within Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin technology to drive the clean energy transition and promote sustainability.
Hello and welcome to the Business of Blockchain. I'm Jane King. Today we continue our special series on blockchain use cases sponsored by Bitdeer, a global Bitcoin miner listed here at the NASDAQ. In this episode, Bitdeer joins us to discuss the winds of change that are moving the Bitcoin mining industry forward in welcome ways, thanks in large part to the wind, the sun, new mining technology, and the power of markets. And here to explain are Samantha Robertson of Bitdeer and Elliot David of Sustainable Bitcoin Protocol. Welcome. So great to have you here. So Elliot, your company is focused on helping Bitcoin mining industry reduce its carbon footprint. So tell me about the size of the Bitcoin mining industry and how much it's grown.
Sure. Well, first we have to think about what Bitcoin mining actually is. It's really just a data center industry, particularly focused on securing and protecting the Bitcoin mining network. The global Bitcoin mining network consumes about 145 terawatt hours of electricity per year. That's about 0.25% of global energy. If we put that into context, compared to an industry like cement, it's 1/1000th of 1%, some extremely small number of global emissions. But because we all care about climate change, we want to decarbonize the economy, Bitcoin mining also has this unique opportunity to not only be carbon neutral, but actually one of the most climate positive industries and asset classes in the world.
Interesting. So Samantha, tell us about Bitdeer. And the company is headquartered in Singapore, right? But you have operations really all over the place, even here in the US. So tell us about Bitdeer.
Bitdeer is headquartered in Singapore, and what makes our company really unique is that the founder of our company is a guy named Jihan Wu, and he's someone you could think of as the Warren Buffett of Bitcoin. He's been there since the beginning and is somebody who really understands the market cycles, which is critical when you're dealing with a commodity. We have 6 data centers globally. 3 are in the US. Our largest is actually in Texas. We also have 2 in Norway and 1 that energized earlier this year, which is a joint venture with the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Bhutan.
So we've all seen the headlines. Bitcoin mining uses as much energy as a small country. It sounds alarming, but what do the headlines get wrong about that?
Yeah, I think what a lot of the headlines get wrong about the industry stem largely from a lack of education. You might have seen headlines saying that Bitcoin mining was going to use up all of the world's electricity by 2020, or that it was going to boil the world's oceans. Obviously, that has not turned out to be true. I think that society, policymakers, regulators, we should be a lot more curious about the industry, not only because we want to identify what are the best ways to manage it, but also what are the opportunities within Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin technology to drive the clean energy transition and promote sustainability.
Talk to me about what you're doing in Texas and how that fits into this whole sustainability story.
Yes, I think that it is probably a surprise to most people that Texas has the largest renewable energy portfolio in the US, because all of that is market driven. It's not a renewable portfolio standard that's coming from political motivations. An important feature of our operations in Texas is our ability to participate in the demand response market, which is separate from the energy market, but allows the grid operator to procure reliability services. And that is something that during times when supply and demand are out of balance, we can curtail our load such that there's enough energy to balance supply and demand so that it's going to priority use cases such as residential customers or other critical load.
I know they had a lot of a string of 90-degree days or something this summer, and there was some kind of navigation of the electric system. So explain how you worked with them.
Sure. So this was the second hottest summer on record in Texas. There were, I think, 40 consecutive days of triple-digit temperatures. So essentially what we would do is curtail for several hours a day in the afternoon so as to avoid this idea of peak time on the grid. But the second was, and this has something to do with renewable penetration, is in the evening hours, when solar starts to come offline and the sun sets, there's typically a mismatch or an imbalance of supply and demand on the grid. And we were also available to curtail, again, as a feature of that reliability service, such that whenever the grid operator needed us to, we would come offline.
The energy industry is starting to see the value of essentially a load that we can design as complementary as we want to the grid, because historically there hasn't been that, right? If you had demand response, it would be coming from hospitals or factories, but there never before has been a load that could monetize electricity into a globally liquid currency in a way that is fully interruptible, fully location agnostic, and completely flexible. And for that reason, Bitcoin mining is the ideal demand response load. If you look at International Energy Agency data, they say that in order to achieve our net zero targets by 2030, we're going to have to 10x our demand response capabilities. And as far as I see it, Bitcoin mining is the best solution for that particular problem.
Interesting. Now, on this subject, we spoke with Le Chier, the professor of electrical and computer engineering at Texas A&M University. He's helping the grid to remain stable under some tough conditions. Let's listen.
One of the key engineering challenges is to keep the supply and demand of electricity balanced almost in second by second basis, right? Therefore, as we envision that future where we see a significant decarbonization, there will be undoubtedly a lot more renewable energy on the supply side. And because of that, there will be undoubtedly a lot more need for demand flexibility on the demand side. So whatever tools that we have at our disposal, we need to have an all hands on deck approach to getting as much demand flexibility as we could. And, there has been quite a few large miners, Bitdeer being one of them, which have responded quite strongly to the grid dispatch signals that is during those stressed moments. And I think these are promising signs that this new emerging demand could be utilized for grid flexibility purposes.
So it's fascinating to see what's happening in Texas, known to most people as oil country, now leading the U.S. in green energy. And Bitcoin miners are doing some interesting things with recycled heat. Explain that.
Yeah, so running computation at a large scale, like Bitcoin mining, one of the end results is a lot of heat. That's why you'll often see Bitcoin miners operating in regions that are very cool, so they don't have to actually spend money on cooling the machines themselves. There's been a lot of really interesting use cases for the heat. Some people are heating up hot tubs and running spas. Some folks are drying and curing, vegetables and meat, running greenhouses. But I'd throw it to Samantha as an actual end user of the heat.
That's correct. At our data center in Norway, we're using immersion cooling for the miners. That means the computing servers are immersed in a dielectric oil. And with that, it transfers heat into a piping system that heats up water for the municipal government that they're using to power greenhouses so that they can grow crops even in the winter in a very remote northeastern part of Norway, which is quite snowy, as you can imagine.
Now, Elliot, Bitdeer is a customer of yours, so explain how you're working together.
Yeah, and we actually see Bitdeer as a sort of partner in how our protocol functions. The way that Sustainable Bitcoin Protocol works is a Bitcoin miner that is using a clean energy source, whether it be hydro or renewables or nuclear or waste methane gas. They'll go through a third-party audit, meaning they'll have that energy use in their operations verified, because we believe in proof of work and transparency, and so do our mining partners. And then once they are verified to be using clean energy, every single time they mine a Bitcoin, they receive a Sustainable Bitcoin certificate. So now they have two assets on their balance. So they're mining Bitcoin, right? They receive Bitcoin from the Bitcoin blockchain, and then they also receive this SBC. So in the case of Bitdeer, for example, take, for example, the Bhutan project, right? They have a site in Bhutan that's using hydropower in Bhutan, which is one of the most sustainable countries in the world. A third party will verify that they are using green hydropower, and then every time they mine a Bitcoin at that facility, they will also receive an SBC. they can then sell this SBC to BlackRock or Fidelity or 21 Shares, basically a holder of Bitcoin that wants to make a transparent and auditable claim about the sustainability of their Bitcoin holdings without saying that one Bitcoin's green and one Bitcoin's not, because of course every single Bitcoin is fully fungible.
Well, thank you so much, Samantha and Elliot, for coming and explaining that. It's truly fascinating to see how Bitcoin mining has evolved over this short time. So thank you so much. And that is it for this edition of the Business of Blockchain. A special thanks to Bitdeer for sponsoring this discussion and our series of videos focused on blockchain use cases. I'm Jane King at the NASDAQ Market Site.